Go in 3, 2, 1, go.
Let's do this.
Pineapple. So this is Assault Android Cactus. It's a top-down twin-stick shooter available for PC and PS4. On PC, you can play with either a gamepad or keyboard and mouse. And you will see that there's a targeting reticle flying around the screen. That is Sam's mouse cursor, and that indicates where he's going to shoot at. So Sam is playing as Holly, who has a Seeker main weapon with limited range, that's its trade-off, and a Cannonball secondary, which does a lot of damage and can bowl through enemies. Meanwhile, Mr. Bond is playing as Starch, who has a laser as the primary weapon, and micro-missiles which home in on enemies at medium range as a secondary. Now, the premise of this game is that we're on this ship called the Genki Star, and it sent out a distress signal which was received and dispatched to the title character Cactus, because the Nexus core on this ship has stopped communicating with the crew, and all the robots have gone homicidal and are kind of trying to kill us, as you can see here. So it's our job to progress through the ship and find out what's really going on. So we're nearing the end of the first level already, and these levels are generally arena-based affairs. So each one is pretty self-contained, pretty short. They get longer as the game goes on, and each one kind of has its own unique features. So for instance, this one introduces holes in the ground, which you will find out very quickly the game will not let you fall in a hole. It just forces you to walk around it, but you can shoot over them. So you have to plan accordingly. Now, in terms of the enemies we've seen quite a few already. We've got these green kegs, which just have a melee attack. We've seen the large red version, which is the mega keg, which shoots 3 bullets, a 3-way pattern at you. These white flying things are drones, which fly rather slowly and shoot a bullet every so often. Every so often here, we're seeing a bullet turret drop into the middle of the arena, but you'll notice that they're generally going to destroy it before it even gets to shoot anything, which is kind of general strategy for this game. Destroy things before they get to attack you. Also, on the topic of destroying things, this game is very wave-based, so you can't progress to the next enemy wave until you destroy everything in the previous wave.
I saw that. So
you want to make sure that you don't leave any enemies behind and sort of balance things out when you've got some enemies that take more firepower to kill. We've also seen one other type of keg, which is the Hunter keg. It's the yellow version, which shoots bullets in one direction. I neglected to point that out before. As we're going into the third stage pretty soon, I'm going to explain some of the mechanics of the game. So you'll notice when they start the next match, there's a HUD at the top of the screen. In each corner, you have the character's life meters, which if that gets exhausted by taking hits, they take a knockdown. Under that, there is a white bar, and eventually you'll see stars next to it. That white bar and the stars indicate your weapon level. You start at weapon level 0 at the beginning of every stage. However, you gain up to weapon level 3, and you want to be at weapon level 3 as much as possible for the increased damage. There are 2 ways to lose weapon energy. The weapon energy is obtained by picking up these little white pellets that are dropped by enemies, which is very visible here in the lights off phase of filament here. If you don't pick up any weapon energy for about 5 seconds, you will start losing it. So you want to keep moving around a little bit and making sure you pick those up. The other way to lose weapon energy is if you take a knockdown. Now, knockdowns are not the end of the world in this game. They just kind of waste time. It doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down. There's no game over based on lives in this game. Game over only happens if this battery at the top of the screen that you see charging every time they pick up a battery power-up, if that battery exhausts, then it's game over and they would have to restart the level. When full, the battery meter represents 60 seconds, and each battery power-up generally adds 30 seconds to the timer. If you're really low on battery, actually, the game gives you a little bit more on the timer for each pickup. So the game this game only has a single difficulty. There's no difficulty settings in this game, but it actually kind of scales based on your play style and your performance. Also, I should point out that while things may look random in this game, there isn't really any RNG per se. All the enemy waves are always the same, and they scale up depending on how many players are playing. The position that they spawn in is generally based on where you are or where you're moving in the stage. So you could potentially manipulate it. There are a couple of places where people tend to do that, but we're not super picky about it usually. We also have mines that just came down in that phase, so that's a thing. We're also going to see Titans in the last section of the stage, which shoot mines out of their arm cannons. They're known as Bomber Titans, so we're going to see them over and over. We've been seeing them throughout these levels so far. And we're getting towards the end of this level, and we're going to be heading into the first boss next. There we go. That
Nice.
signals the end of the level.
It's a good cleanup.
So each zone in this game, of which there are 5, has 5 levels, and the 5th level is always a boss. So this is the first boss, Embryo, also known as Paperweight, Doorstop, Doormat. Generally, you want to stay one character right in front of him during these phases where he's aiming at one character, and they want to stay close. The reason why, and the reason they want to stay consistently close, is in those phases, he aims at the character closest to him. So if you suddenly swap and the other character becomes closer, he's going to end up fanning his bullets across and probably hitting both of your characters, which is, of course, a bad time. In this phase, again, you want one character to stay very close. And one thing worth pointing out about Starch's laser in particular is that it does more damage at close range. You don't necessarily realize that playing casually, but it's very important. But we're seeing, we're down to the last phase of the boss now. And you may have been noticing that the vitality meter is actually subdivided into sections representing the boss phases. So that was the first boss.
Sub 1's pretty good.
And now we are into the second zone, and the first stage of that is called Hive. Immediately you'll notice that the artistic style has completely changed. And that's going to happen in each zone. Each one has sort of its own theme, including music as well as visual artwork. We're going to be introduced to a new enemy here. If you look at the top of the screen, there's these wasps, which fly around, and most enemies in this game don't do contact damage, actually, but the wasps do. They don't do much damage alone, but they tend to come in swarms, and if they swarm you or you're caught off guard when you're already low on health, then they can easily knock you down. I didn't get to talk about power-ups before, so let's explain those. There's 3 different colored power-ups, red, yellow, and blue. The red power-up spawns 2 firepower drones, which means increased damage output, which is great because we want to kill things fast, because that's how we go fast in this game. The yellow power-up is Accelerate. Okay, so actually, I'll just point out, we just saw Holly grab a firepower, so you can see those 2 drones. Meanwhile, Starch had been walking around with Accelerate for a while, which makes you sprout these little pretty wings, as she calls them, and makes you go fast and makes you attract weapon energy and batteries from farther away, which can be useful sometimes. It also increases the possibility of evading attacks. The blue power-up is Shutdown. We saw that used on the bosses extensively, or will see that used on the bosses extensively, and that makes enemies stop moving. It makes them take 1.5 times damage for that period where they're disabled. It makes the player character who picked it up regain their health and gain invincibility for a few seconds, so it's very good in a pinch. Here's the Shutdown right here, which Starch is a little interesting and has her own special phrases for each of the power-ups.
Okay.
So we're heading into Influx next. This has some interesting level design, where we're going to get a good taste for the game's ability to have dynamic levels. So again, we've got a phase with mines dropping on our heads, so you've got to be a little bit careful. Fortunately, it's only pairs of them at a time usually here. But soon we'll be moving into a new phase when you saw the whole level swapped in and out. And we're introduced to a new enemy here. You may have noticed in the first boss fight that Embryo shot missiles up in the air that came down, indicated by targeting reticles. Well, now we have this enemy called the Fido, also affectionately referred to as the Toaster Dog, which has the same mechanic. We have time for a donation or 2 during the rest of this level.
All right, perfect. We have a $25 donation from Shane68 saying, great to see some glorious twin-stick gaming at SGDQ. Kill the animals and kill the toaster dogs.
Yes.
I like this guy.
We also have a $5 donation from Walter X8 saying, hope
Nice.
you get Assault Android awesome now, runners.
Nice. Shout-outs to Walter X8.
Nice.
He was part of the speedrun community early on.
He was the very first person to run this game.
All right, we're moving into the next level here called Oxygen. This level's main draw is that it's got this sort of donut shape to it, which can make maneuvering a little bit difficult, especially during one particular phase, which we'll see in a bit. We're going to be introduced to a new enemy in a moment. So remember the Titans? These are Blaster Titans. They're a different type of Titan. Instead of shooting bombs at you, they shoot shockwaves when they pound the ground. They're generally, I find, easier to deal with because once you see them clearly commit to a direction, they're pretty easy to circle strafe. Here's the phase that I was referring to. That is just lovely. They made that look really easy. Good job. But the mine phase in this level is just really nerve-wracking. I usually chicken out and take an accelerate to deal with it. But yeah, so the Blaster Titans, one thing worth noting with the Blaster Titans attack is it will curve, so if you're far away from it, you have to skedaddle a little bit harder to get out of the way of it, but it's still manageable. It's a limited curve. Also, I should probably point out that you've probably noticed by now that some enemies shoot blue bullets, while some enemies fire like mines that cause red damage, or the Blaster Titans also cause these shockwaves that are red. There is a meaning behind those colors. The blue bullets will only ever hurt player characters. The red damage will hurt either player characters or enemies. So you can actually have enemies kind of soften each other up for you, but we usually don't want to bank on that too hard and still concentrate on focusing them down ourselves. But it can be helpful in certain situations. And then, of course, there's yellow damage, which is what your characters fire, which only hurts enemies. There is no friendly fire in this game. So this is a video game, and what is a video game without conveyor belts? So Process has conveyor belts.
They move me.
Don't forget sewer levels.
Unfortunately, the game does not have sewer levels. Developer, please fix. Thank you. Give us something to spend our credits on. We have a lot of them. I don't know. The game gives you credits when you complete stages, and after you replay the game for 200 some odd hours, you kind of end up with a lot of them, and you run out of things to spend them on in game. But this level is, other than the conveyor belts, mostly a review of enemies we've seen before. We have time for a quick donation here, probably.
Sure thing. We got a $15 donation from Esoteris saying, cheers from the Anime Expo. So glad to see GDQ came on during this run. Kill the animals and save the frames. We also have a $5 donation from Curry24 saying, I've never heard of this game before. It's super cute.
It is.
It is very
It's
cute.
very kawaii.
It's also a dang heckin' good game. And there is, I will take this opportunity to point out, there is a free demo of this, and it's a really good demo. It gives you the tutorial, 3 stages, and a boss fight, and an unlockable character. And there's tons of replay value just in that because all the characters' playstyles are so different.
And I think they go on the leaderboards too, don't they, for the demo?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, I thought it did.
The other thing I'll point out is the Steam sale is still happening, and this game is half off. It's $7.50, and it's well worth it, in my opinion. But that's only my opinion.
You to
Cannonball
carry
strats.
this level, okay.
Cannonball strats, come on.
All right, so this is Vespula, the second boss, and one of the harder ones, even for experienced runners of this game. They can give you a hard time.
Just bees everywhere.
Yup. So we've got the wasps, and remember what I said about wasps swarming. You want to be a little careful here. Fortunately, the first wasp phase here just kind of orbits her at a pretty consistent pace and a consistent distance. Here she breaks out of her shell to attack you and fling giant novelty flowers at you. I'm not making that term up. That is something Cactus actually says in the boss dialogue. Now we're into the third phase, which is the second wasp phase. In this case, they actually kind of surge in and out, and I find this phase to be particularly dangerous, as was just demonstrated. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's the knockdown.
Fortunately, Holly had a firepower there, which definitely helped.
You're welcome.
We missed that phase where she shoots vines at you and bullets. Yeah, no, not mines. That would be even worse. Now we've got another wasp phase, which generally you can stay near the wall and kind of keep her there. And if you're against the wall right next to her, the wasps will never actually hit you. Now we've got a mix of the second and fourth phases in terms of the attacks, and taking a shutdown there makes short work of her.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that was a really fast last phase.
That was all right.
So again, we have changed zones, so we've got new art style, new music, new really groovy music that Bomb likes to rock out to sometimes. And this level is called Checkpoint, and it's kind of interesting. So I mentioned most of the levels are kind of like basically battle arenas, but this one's different. This one's more of a progression. Watch
wait
out
for
for
me.
that Titan. Remember those Titans.
Whoa.
Oh boy.
Careful. That's
yeah.
dangerous.
You didn't kill him.
So this
do
this
it.
level is actually kind of a progression where you walk through a hallway. Now you might think, oh cool, so I can just go fast and skip the enemies, right? No.
No.
Unfortunately, you were wrong. You still have to kill all the enemies. If you try to skip ahead of the enemies, then you will end up encountering either a closed door or a hallway that stretches on forever hilariously. Also worth noting, if you leave a battery behind in this level, the same thing happens. The game does not want to despawn batteries on you because it thinks that would be a bad thing to do and a rude thing to do.
I don't think I've ever seen that Mega Cake spawn that far forward.
Oh boy. Meanwhile, in this hallway, we see super mines for the only time in the game, pretty much. They make bigger boom and take more shots to kill. So better watch out. Also, just in case you didn't have enough mines in this hallway, remember those bomber titans? Yeah, we've got a few of them
Oh,
too.
that's real risky when I've done that.
Oh yeah, that was a little scary. And now we've got a whole gaggle of hunter kegs here, and a couple mega kegs, and we will have one other new enemy.
Oh.
It's gonna hit. Look.
The laser turret, which we almost got to see fire a shot. We'll probably see one later. The laser turret fires red lasers in 4 directions. Now remember, red damage means it'll damage you and enemies. But again, you probably want to just kill the laser so that you don't have to deal with maneuvering around it. And we're rounding out this level pretty soon. We've got a few more titans and a few more kegs to deal with, and one more laser turret, which again, we didn't get to see fire. Name of the game, kill things fast, and the fewer things that get to shoot at you, the better off you are. We've just got a few seconds left of this. As you'll notice, there's a enemies remaining counter that shows up at the bottom when you're nearing the end of each stage, so you kind of know the end is in sight. Or maybe you get psyched out and then take a knockdown. But anyway, so now we're into Transit, and this level is again more of an arena, but it's kind of got this moving platform feel to it with the background going. And a couple of times in this level, the platform will actually turn. And the later times that that happens, you'll actually experience some form of inertia where you can't actually move across the platform. You actually sort of get sucked to one side as the thing is turning. But pretty soon we're going to get the first turn. This one I don't believe experiences inertia. But you do experience mines falling on your head. And there is these lasers in the tunnel. For some reason, they decided this was a good idea to have lasers in the tunnel. There's 2 ways about these lasers. One is the coward strat, which is hide behind crates. However, you'll notice that there are titans, remember those? Busting out of the crates every so often. The other way to deal with the laser is to weapon swap through it. So the weapon swap mechanic in this game doubles as a dodge mechanic. You'll notice that when you weapon swap, you actually you kind of glow white for a split second. It's a fraction of a second. Anytime you're glowing white, you're invincible. It happens when you weapon swap dodge, when you take a shutdown power-up, and when you get up from being knocked down. So that's important to note, and that weapon swap dodge is very much a important twitch mechanic
I got that one.
to survive in this game when you're playing aggressively. Meanwhile, we've got a couple new enemies here. These are orbital factories, these green things, and they spawn these nodes that orbit around them. Pro tip, do not walk under an orbital factory. It is almost surely a surefire way to take a knockdown. We're also seeing wasp tanks at a few points in this level. We will probably see some more. I neglected to call them out when they first appeared, but I will call them out again when they do. Also, keep in mind, there's still 1 crate on this level. Just don't forget about that. Keep that one in the corner of your eye there. There you go. Hi, remember the Titans? Yeah, hi. They're there. So these wasp tanks, they're basically like pinatas, except instead of busting them open and revealing delicious candy, you get bees. Kind of a raw deal, kind of not a big hit at children's parties. But we can deal with them, and the best way to deal with wasps in general, especially these, is to destroy them before they get a chance to fan out. Because when they're clustered together, it's easier to deal with them. And if they fan out, which they're probably going to do here, because this is kind of difficult to deal with, weapon level 0 and all. If they fan out, though, there's chances that they can get stuck behind objects, or one can just kind of wander off and you don't notice. And again, in order to progress through enemy waves in this game, you have to kill all enemies in the previous wave. So the last thing you want is to end up spending time wasp hunting. So this level is heat. And it earns its name because of this platform in the middle that's rotating, and it's got this jet in the side of it. And you may have noticed when it was rotating around the other way that there's another turret on the opposite side. Yeah, guess what that means. Also, mine phase, surprise. Somebody was surprised.
I wasn't surprised. The mines didn't get me. This was the fire, man.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, unfortunately. Again, the fire is red damage. So that means it can get enemies too, which can actually be helpful in this level against wasps if one gets away. But again, don't count on it because the flame does go pretty slow.
Yeah, it's coming back, isn't it?
It doesn't feel slow when it's chasing you, but it feels slow when you want it to chase an enemy. But we've got a lot of enemies we've already seen here. And you'll notice that this platform in the center is kind of changing the way it rotates, changing which flame is open. And yeah, you got to stay on your toes here.
It's chasing.
Earlier, it actually stopped fully to lull you into a false sense of security,
Oh,
hoping
that
that
was
you would
risky.
stand in front of one of the flame jets.
They're both active now.
So don't do that.
I'm wise to its
But we've got
games.
time for at least one donation while they finish out this level.
We have a $150 donation
Wow.
from Restart
Oh my god.
Holy cow.
saying, "Hey, Assault Android Cactus Duo, I wish you the best of luck in this game with the best name. Sorry about Holly, but that's what you get with no coral."
Oh my god.
Ah,
Yep, shout outs to Restart Gaming. He's one of the Coral fans, and he's done commentary for races in the past for this game.
cheeky. Very cheeky.
Thank you, Restart. It's very generous of you.
All right, so this level is Revolution. Yeah, so we have that conveyor belt level, and you thought that was enough. The developers beg to differ, so have another conveyor belt level. This time we've got these concentric rings where the center circle doesn't move. Then you've got a ring that rotates around that, and then a stationary ring, and then another rotating ring. By the way, did I mention rotating? The rotation is tremendous. I believe it's Revolution related. Also, you'll notice that the walls rotate along with it, so that kind of interrupts your line of sight sometimes. You can mitigate mitigate the confusion a bit by not standing on the rotating platforms yourself, but inevitably the enemies will end up on them, the power-ups will end up on them, the battery will end up on them. You're going to have to deal with the rotating platforms. We're going to be introduced to one new enemy here. So previously we were introduced to the Orbital Factory, which was the green large factory. Here we're going to end up shortly after this phase introduced to the Vector Factory, which is a smaller red factory. And instead of orbiting nodes around it, it shoots them in a straight line towards the players. They're pretty easy to deal with as long as you see them coming and not get sniped to the side. Anyway, this level is kind of anything can happen, as you can see. So we've got time for a couple of donations here.
Start.
We have a $50 donation from Hupfen saying, "Seems like an awful lot happening on the screen all at once.
Yes.
Hope you guys don't find yourself in a prickly situation."
That's a pretty good
I
one.
love it.
That's a pretty good one.
Sometimes it just gets to be too much. You just kind of unfocus your eyes a bit, lay back.
But yeah, definitely this can seem overwhelming to people who are just like, watching the game, especially for the first time. It definitely takes some getting used to. I mean, like, my personal story is it took me a couple of weeks before I came back to the final boss and finally beat it for the first time. But the thing about this game is I always felt like it was within my control and it was up to me to get better at it. So speaking of bosses, this is the
Laser.
third boss.
Beam
He's
speed.
Justice.
Laser.
He's raining
Alright.
from above.
Let's do it.
And he's got 3 phases rather than the 6 that we've seen in previous bosses. Now, the first thing you're going to see them do is make him turn around. That forces him to stop his laser phase early, otherwise he fires multiple lasers. We want him to spawn these laser fences because when you destroy the fence posts, they spawn power-ups, which are good for us. We're going to get into the second phase pretty soon. And in the second phase, he's going to circle around the side of the arena, if they let him. Let's just see what happens. Oh, jeez. Yeah, so also bosses tend to have a melee attack. In his case, it's a phase shield sort of
I
thing.
can't hit him with my cannonball.
So
He's going this way.
yeah, these rockets will generally one-hit down you, and we actually saw he shoots out a shockwave there at the second part of the phase, which will slow you down. It's kind of like a shutdown
Get
effect.
some. Ouch.
Uh-oh. Didn't have too many places to go there, unfortunately. So here we've got more laser fences, and we've got him shooting a laser at us again, but now he's had enough of us. He's going to throw his head at us, and he's going to shoot a different kind of laser.
I
We're,
missed.
we're having some technical
I missed.
difficulties with all of these knockdowns.
Oh, how did that shut down? Not doing
I'm playing
do its
Holly.
job.
I need you
Oh.
to do damage.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so he's got different types of lasers. We got through.
Well, eventually justice was served.
Whoa.
Yeah, you like that one?
One thing to point out is also those heads that he throws basically function like super mines. So beware of them bouncing off a wall, creeping back up behind you, and exploding on your butt. So now we're on to the fourth zone, which again has a new style and a lot of dynamic level design. Immediately we saw a new enemy, the blue version of the Toaster Dog, which is the Fetch Fighter. We're going to see more of those. What they do is they put a leash on you, and they try to give you a new leash on life. You don't want that. You really don't want that. That restricts your movement heavily.
That is a pun we did not discuss.
They did not see that pun coming. Yes,
Gross.
I snuck one in under the radar. So yeah, you can generally see when those Fidos are going to line up with you, because like normally they just kind of playfully hop around side to side, but then they start sort of like drawing a bead on you and lining up. And you definitely want to take them down, you know, put down that sandwich and just take down the Fetch Fidos before you do anything else. So meanwhile, in this stage, you've noticed there's like platforms swapping in and out all over the place. We've fortunately got this nice flat platform in the middle that we're going to try to make sure something is standing on at any given moment so that it doesn't swap out. Because you'll notice we've got these other platforms that are like half platforms, donut platforms. I mean, donuts are delicious, but, you know, we could do without donut platforms. We've got platforms with pillars in them, like that one that just got replaced up there. We've also got super jerk platforms sometimes that have like pillars and holes, like 3 pillars and 3 holes in them. So we want to avoid those and have this maneuverability that's really nice here. One thing that's a little nasty on this stage is at some points you're going to have turrets spawn that you're going to have to deal with, and sometimes they'll end up spawning a little far away from you, depending on how you were moving. We'll see how things go here, but first you'll get bullet turrets and then you'll get laser turrets. So we'll see what happens. But we got time for a donation.
We have $150 from Anonymous saying, love the event, wish I could watch it more live. Shout outs to Mouse.
All right, that's enough laser turret, thank you. Oh.
You gotta kill those guys.
His friend was not happy with me.
We also have a $6.90 donation from Denier,
Nice.
requesting that Bond start singing.
Who told that person that? As a dirty, filthy lie.
Shout outs to Denier Nurtan, who's another Cactus runner, also does TGM stuff on the side.
I don't even know how Zone Force theme goes normally.
You know, come on, I've heard you do
know-
this one.
you
You've
know
got
it.
this.
Yeah.
You do know it.
All right, well, if we get to a quiet part, you know, surprises happen.
All right, I'll give you some time to learn the theme again, since you forgot it, and I'll talk about Relay here. Relay is another stage kind of like Checkpoint, which was the first stage in Zone 3, where it's more of a linear progression rather than a arena. But again, you have to kill all the enemies to progress. So you'll know you're doing it right if you see these platforms drop away behind you, because meanwhile there's platforms forming up and way in front of you where you can't see them yet, which is how it should be. You don't want to run out of platforms. We will be seeing a new enemy in a little bit
Oh.
once they board this elevator here.
Oh.
Ooh,
okay.
watch out for that guy.
That was, yeah. Oh, wow, yeah, you guys got the mines after you already boarded the elevator. Wow,
Ooh, I deserve that one.
that's rough. So, okay, we are introduced here to the Turbo Drone. It is a red version of the drone enemy. They move faster, they fire 3 bullets instead of 1, so don't get caught snoozing because those can do a lot of damage to you. And if you've taken any damage up to that point, it'll knock you down. Also, by the way, I neglected to mention that you will actually regain your health over time if you don't take damage for a few seconds. It'll like recharge pretty quickly after that timeout. But yeah, the other thing about the turbo drones is they tend to strafe you really well. So especially if you're playing as Starch, you either want a firepower drone to increase the spread of your attack, or you want to use micro missiles to take them out easily. Otherwise, with the laser, you basically kind of have to wag across them to sort of coerce them into running into your line of fire, because otherwise they'll try to strafe away. We have time for a donation, unless Bond wants to do music.
Let's see, where are we at in the song here?
Not a good spot.
We're getting to a good spot.
Yeah, it's about to get really good.
All right, so we'll do a cappella here.
Well, here we go. Take her down, cause I'm pretty dumb. Okay, that's pretty good. You got a little taste. Catch my new CD out tomorrow.
I will mention that Bond does tend to practice this game weekly on Sundays, so if you want more acapella, you know where to find it.
It is spectacular.
As long as we get sub 3 minutes on these.
All right, so this is Focus.
We'll be all right.
So we're initially introduced to enemies we've already seen. You'll notice, though, if you look at the bottom here, you'll notice there's another platform. Hi, other platform.
Hello.
And immediately we're introduced to a new enemy, the Reaper Spectre. The Reaper Spectres are, so you know how Fidos were kind of a regular enemy doing a thing you originally saw a boss do? Reaper Spectres are kind of like that for Justice. So Reaper Spectres charge a laser and then eventually fire it. And they track you very quickly while they're charging, but a split second before they fire, they will stop tracking you. So that is your chance to strafe out of the way. Also, it is red damage, so it can hurt enemies. They can actually be a little bit helpful that way. But on the other hand, they're a little squishy, so they're actually kind of easy to focus down before they ever get to fire a laser, because it does take some time to charge their laser.
So yeah, is the fire after this wave?
So
is it this phase?
we're going to spend a little more time on this platform, but when they reach the end of this phase, they're going to want to be around the outer perimeter, and you'll see why. Yep. Oh, wow, that was a little dangerous.
That was a wee bit dangerous.
Yeah, so you saw why. There's this blue flame turret in the middle, and we don't really have much of a way of knowing where it's going to be pointing at until the ground drops out, and, well, you don't want to learn the hard way, so staying on the outer perimeter is safer to do there. Now, that is a blue flame, so it will not do us any favors. It will only hurt us, not enemies. And we've just got a myriad of Wasp tanks and kegs, and we're going to have some Blaster Titans. Remember the Titans, guys and girls? And more Reaper Spectres, which are kind of gnarly in this phase because they can sometimes line up right along the perimeter, which makes them potentially a little hard to dodge depending on where you are. We've got time for one donation here as they wrap this up.
We've got $20 from Jerd Sai saying, awesome to see this being speedran at GDQ. $7.50 on Steam is way too cheap for this hectic game. So go hard for a fast time, Mr. Bond and Toucan Sam. Save the Android Animals and the Genki Star.
I will also point out that there was a Humble bundle that this game was in.
Ooh, that's dangerous.
So check your Humble library, folks. You might already have it and not even realize it.
Otherwise, $7 is very cheap for this game.
Yeah,
It's definitely
well
worth
worth
the
it.
money.
If you find
worth
replay
way
value
more.
in this sort of thing, it's well worth it. I mean, I probably played the demo for 4 hours easily.
This level looks interesting. Tell us
Yeah.
more about it.
So this is for Peter, and anybody who's a fan of Bastion might think that this effect kind of looks familiar, because I remember someone showing up in stream once and pointing that out.
That was a cheap
That there's
shot.
these square tiles forming up around you, and sometimes walls form up too. One thing worth pointing out about these tiles is, one, there is a finite number of them that will spawn, and two, they will always form a concrete path to enemies or pickups. So you don't want to let any enemies sort of get away from you, because you can end up sort of running out of ground to walk on if you do that. And yeah, we saw the first mine phase there. That's not the only one. Spoiler alert for like 10 seconds from now.
No, mine's good, man.
Maybe
We
a
got
little
this.
more than that. But yeah, we've got more Reaper Spectres, but you're seeing they're focusing them down, like I said, really quickly so they never get to fire. Here's the second mine phase. Fortunately, the area tends to open up a little bit when you get to that, so it's a little easier to avoid. Now we've got some Wasp
And
tanks.
also Holly. That helps
In
a
case
lot.
anybody forgot about the bee pinatas, we've got those again. But, you know, the guys who made the bee pinatas decided to go back to the drawing board, and they thought, oh, let's come up with another enemy that we know they'll really have a blast with. So we're going to see that right here.
No, we're not.
Go for it.
It's
Well,
done.
yeah, they're a little
behind
bit
you.
You're not
off
gonna see that
screen
one
at the
either.
moment.
Or
There
that
you
one.
go. We
Or
saw
that
one.
one.
There we go. Yep,
Ooh,
these
Hero
are
Mine.
mine tanks.
Hero Mine almost got me.
I did say you'd have a blast. You'll have actually multiple blasts, so I was slightly incorrect.
That was kind of a dud, though.
So we've also got a new version of Factory that we've been seeing in this level, the Tendril Factory. It's the blue version that shoots these nodes out in a radial pattern from itself. One thing to point out about all three types of factories is when you destroy the factory itself, all of their nodes despawn. So it's kind of like a mechanic that you've probably seen if you've played any shmups, where like big enemies' bullets all disappear when you destroy them. Some shmups do that. We've got time for another donation as they finish out this level.
Oh, that was close.
Good dash.
Sure thing. We got a $99.99 donation from Psych Q, saying the camera shakes makes me nauseous to play this game, so I can't really watch. But when I do play it, the devs have been nice enough to make it an option after release. Woohoo!
That is very much worth pointing out, and apologies if the camera shake is too much for anyone. But there are some really good accessibility options in terms of like color accessibility and disabling the shake and stuff. So now we're into the fourth.
Not helpful.
Try to
Wow.
face him down.
Yeah,
Little
it's
close.
easy to venture a little too far in one direction there. So this is Venom. Shoutouts to fans of Bullet Hell games because, yeah, you're going to be a fan of this boss. And it can be pretty rough the first time you fight it. So we had first a phase where we had a turret with lots of bullets coming around the outside, then turrets along the middle. Now we've got the Spindly Doodle. Shoutouts to Moonspot for that highly technical term for that phase. And now we're going to have sort of an intensification of those phases. So now we have 2 turrets. And I will point out that those dark blue bullets will actually almost guarantee instantly knocking you down.
It's hard to see.
And when you destroy one of those, the other one goes into sort of full throttle mode there.
Oh, this
But the
is-
bullets despawn in between that, so you have a little bit of a breather. Now here we've got an intensification of the second phase, where instead of 4 turrets down the middle, we've got 8. There's a lot to pay attention to on this screen. Good luck.
yes,
You've got
it
to pay
is.
attention to where you are, where you're aiming, where your cursor's aiming, or if you're on mouse.
All right, I got this.
And what you're about to walk into. And here we've got what I like to call the greater Spindly Doodle. Yeah, have fun with that one. Actually, I'm pretty sure that one of the trailers for the game ends with that, with all the bullets coming out. It's just like, yeah, have fun, dude.
Look at the blue.
And so now we've shot off all of Venom's arms, so he's attacking us with his butt. This is the butt phase. I have confirmation from the developer that that is the correct term.
The butt phase.
So he shoots webs at you, and they can slow you down if they hit you. And now you've shot
get
his
this one.
arms and his butt off.
There it is.
Well,
So
it's
now he has no
anyway.
choice but to just come at you and spit on you.
Eat it.
If he hadn't
And that
gone
is
down, that
Venom.
would have been really good. He ruined it.
That was really solid, man.
Yeah.
Was it pretty good?
He ruined it. You see that?
Yeah, I saw it. I tried to. I was being a hero, man. I was facing him down.
I will point out that if you step on that blue gook that he spits out, it will damage you on contact. Fun fact is, you actually unlock a character after beating that boss the first time that has a very similar attack. So now we're into the 5th and final zone. And
Whoa.
if stuff didn't look serious in Zone 4,
Heroes.
it's going to get serious here.
Heroes.
So this is Centrifuge, and as you can see, the sides of the level kind of spin around, and every so often it opens up and spits enemies at you, including mines, which is lovely. People in the community have had a lot of fun with this level. Another one of the options that this game has in terms of extra features is EX options, which you can unlock with those credits
Take
that I
all
mentioned
3
earlier.
of those. Come
And
on,
one of
man.
the EX options is called Virtual Player Count, or VPC. And what it does is, well, let's say you go in there with 1 player, but you turn VPC up to 4, you can play 1 player against enemies stacked as if you were playing 4-player co-op, which means there are a lot of enemies. Also a lot of power-ups, which is kind of hilarious because by the end you're hearing power-up callouts every second. We're going to be introduced to one more enemy here, and actually I might have already missed the first introduction, but we've seen a couple types of Fidos already. There's going to be one more, the Jumbo Fido. So we're going to see that sometime pretty soon. Oh, we're going to have some turbo drones first, though. And mine tanks. Don't forget mine tanks. If you can spare a shutdown power-up, you can take out mine tanks in groups like that really easily because you can just walk up to them and pop them open and explode, and it doesn't matter because you're invincible, because that's what shutdown gives you. But Jumbo Fidos, here we go. Here's a Jumbo Fido. Jumbo Fidos are like the regular Fido, except instead of shooting 1 missile, they shoot lots of them. And you have to keep on moving because the missiles will actually follow you as you move around for a few seconds. So just keep moving is one of the names of the game at all times, and the Fidos are just heavily reinforcing that. So we're going to be heading into a rather interesting level next. This one's called Control.
This level might be very excitable. Fair warning.
Oh, all right. So, yeah, and we'll see why in a minute. But we've got these turrets that we can activate. This one you just step on once, you set it and forget it. Shoutouts to Mr. Popiel. And it shoots a machine gun, and then it has to recharge once it runs out of ammo. There are 2 other turrets. But before we talk about the turrets, remember the Titans? We've got another type of Titan, the last type, which is the Buster Titan. They will bust you up if they get close to you. If they get a direct line of sight to you, they will lunge at you, which itself won't damage you, but then they will immediately ground pound, which does blue damage, so it won't hurt enemies. It is definitely possible to weapon swap to dodge that, and if you find yourself in close quarters with a Buster Titan, you will find yourself noping. Whoa!
Sorry.
What just happened?
Sorry.
That wasn't quite a squawk
It
yet.
wasn't. Didn't hit the pitch.
We have not reached squawk status yet.
It surprised
me. I don't know
me.
what
It
that was,
surprised
but
me.
never do it again.
But yeah, between the Mine Tanks and the Buster Titans on this level, that can definitely happen. So there are 2 other turrets in this level. The one at the top right shoots missiles while you're standing on it, but you have to stand on it. But on the other hand, that means you have direct control over its ammo supply. And the one at the top left, which we normally don't use, spawns a plasma field around it, which means that you're generally keeping things in kind of close proximity to you, which is kind of scary.
Oh, this isn't good.
Which is why we don't use it a lot.
This isn't good.
But yeah,
Can I get up?
let's see what happens with these mines. All right, well, we have time for a donation and maybe a squawk in there.
We got a $10 donation from Cosmic the Dolphin.
Yes, nice.
The entire Assault Android Cactus Discord and community is behind you guys. Wish I could be there with you.
Thanks, Cosmic. I know you're here in
Thank you,
spirit.
Cosmic. All right, here we go. Here it comes.
Maybe squawk time.
You can't force it, man.
Yeah, I know.
It's got to be natural.
No, I'm just warning that it might be time. I'm not trying to force it.
Might have to wait till convection. I think we're getting.
Oh,
Nope,
yeah,
let go. Let go.
there'll be plenty of opportunities
Doggo,
there.
please. Oh, I don't like that guy.
Who's a good dog? Not these guys, sorry.
Not that one. 0 out of 10. Doggo, jeez, please,
was
come
They're
on.
good
Real
toasters.
Up to play. What was he doing over there?
He was just hanging out.
They can't even make
He's chilling.
toast, though. I mean, really. Who decided that a toaster firing missiles was a good idea? I don't know.
Oh, this.
Probably a lot of people in this room, actually, but, you know.
This is my least favorite stage.
This is also my least favorite stage.
Yeah,
you
so this is
Philistines.
convection. It is generally the longest stage in the game.
I'm basically useless on this level.
All right, well, that's good to know.
Shoutouts to Toucan Sam, who says he's basically useless on this level. No, not really, but we're going to be introduced.
Ooh,
We are
I'm
introduced to
not
one more enemy in this level. You saw these little blue bullets fanning out from all over the place. That was the Banshee Spectre, another type of Spectre, a blue Spectre. And especially in co-op, you want to take care of those as soon as you spot them because multiple of them can spawn in one wave. In single player, that generally doesn't happen. But in multiplayer, you can get multiple spawning at once. And you don't want them filling the stage up with their bullets. That's a really bad time. But the main draw of this stage is you'll notice that we've got these sort of stovetop jet type things going on here. And they are red damage, so remember, that means they can hurt enemies too. But don't be fooled by them. They won't instantly knock you down if you step on them. They're actually more of a slow burn. But also that means that they're not going to hurt enemies a whole lot either. But obviously if you're already at low health, which has happened to me, stepping on one inadvertently can definitely give you a knockdown.
Yeah, but you do have like a second to get out of the way at least.
Yeah. Also, at certain points in this level, you will notice that the patterns obviously change up in the ground here. And at some points, it'll actually follow the player characters, which in multiplayer kind of turns it into a miniature game of Snake against each other. But like I said, this level goes on for a bit, so we've got time for a couple donations easily.
Got a $10 donation from Cabaran saying, Assault Android Cactus, which me and my friend have played in couch co-op a whole lot, and
Nice.
I had to donate. It's awesome.
Awesome, thank you for the donation.
It's totally a couch game.
Yep. Fun fact, the two runners here don't live close to each other, but this game does only local co-op, so they have been using stuff like Moonlight Stream and Parsec to practice this online, which means that Mr. Bond has been playing it during practice before coming here with 50 milliseconds or more of delay generally. So yeah, they easily got a couple of PBs for themselves during practice today. You can do another donation.
We got a $20 donation from the Hamburglar saying, keep the
That's
puns
a good
coming.
name.
Nice.
That's a good name.
That is a very good name.
Only right then that he said keep the puns coming. Yeah.
Puns, buns.
He's
I get
helping.
it.
He or she is helping.
We do have a $10 donation from Anonymous saying, loving the run of this game and huge props on the commentary.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, you've been really thorough, man.
That was a
All
good
right.
cannon shot right there.
Thank you.
We are heading
It's all about the trick
into
shots.
the gatekeeper level of the run. And you are introduced here to Assault Android Licorice. So if we were following the boss dialogue, which we're not, we skip it, there's an option for that, then we would have been hinted at the existence of Licorice at the end of the Venom fight. But here she introduces herself for reals, but then she decides she's going to go off and have a sandwich. Shout outs to sandwiches, by the way.
She's a
They're
filthy
delicious.
coward. That's why.
She's going to let her cronies here do the work first.
We gotta kill
Also, I like to point out that the boss dialogue in this game is pretty interesting. It is different for each android in the game. So, more replay value right there. Because each android kind of has their own personality. But we're going to get into... Oh, yeah. Shoutouts to the one and only Maser turret, which we barely saw there. It is like laser turrets, except instead of red turrets, it's blue
we
turrets.
really need
It
battery.
fires a blue laser, and it rotates the opposite direction and rotates slightly faster.
We missed a battery.
But yeah, we destroy that before it even starts usually. So, and it's the only one in the game, so you don't really get to see it. So now it is time for Licorice to get real. And you'll notice that the score at the bottom of the screen has been replaced by another battery. She was introduced as Assault Android Licorice. She is an android just like us. She has battery just like us. She can pick up weapon energy and power-ups just like us, and batteries.
She can take a laser to the face just like us. She can eat rockets
Yeah,
just like us.
that's a feature, not a bug. But yeah, we want to generally focus
Maybe.
on keeping her down as often as possible. But again, just like us, she has invulnerability for a few seconds when she first gets up. So we can only do so
that's-
much.
Thank you.
I got it.
So we're going to try to control her, keep her down.
Don't
One
let
character's
her
going to
get
focus on
that.
that. The other character's going to try to kill
hit her.
enemies.
Oh, man. Come on.
The other character's going to try to kill enemies while remaining as close as possible to them, because the real boss of the stage is not Licorice. The real boss of the stage is battery spawns. This is a pure war of attrition. Uh-oh.
That's right.
Did I jinx it? I don't
You
know.
did. You
Commentator's
definitely
curse.
did.
Come on, man.
I didn't actually say anything specific, too specific,
Oh, that's
but
not
oh
good.
well.
That's not
Okay.
good.
Oh no.
That's not really
man.
good.
That's not.
Oh dear.
That's
So
okay.
yeah, they got to make sure that batteries don't spawn closer to her than them,
We really need this next one.
which is the real tough part of this fight. Uh-oh.
Yeah, we really need this next one.
Ooh,
We got
face
it. All
down.
right.
Yeah.
Also, shoutouts to battery desperation mode, which if you're really low on battery, the battery will actually zoom towards you much faster and try to give you a final,
Nope.
final shot.
Took a
Oh,
bullet
nice!
for
You
you,
got it
man.
before the shutdown. Got it before the knockdown. Nice.
Ooh, come get some. Yeah.
We might be able to just grab
That's
it.
right. We got
There
it.
we go. That wasn't
There
good.
we go.
And
It wasn't great,
all right, that deserves applause.
but it was a completion.
It wasn't pretty, but it worked. Obviously, ideally, you want to get no Licorice batteries, but no game overs on that stage is also good.
It's the gatekeeper for a reason.
So we're up to the Nexus core. This is Medulla, and she's apparently going off the deep end because Licorice has shown her things, which we will see later. They're safe for the stream, I promise.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope you learn to weapon swap to dodge because it's really useful here.
Yeah, it is a required tactic.
Pretty much, or you can try to be Coral and use her plasma field, but then you're going to have a bad time on the later phases of the fight.
Missed it.
So here we have an embryo refight of his last phase. Shoutouts to Mega Man and other such games that have boss refights, I guess. So yeah, this is a repeat of the last phase, basically. Now we have another bullet phase of the last boss. Again, with bullets all over the place, you want to generally weapon swap to dodge if you want to stay close, which Starch does for maximum laser damage. These bullets are going in two opposite directions. Doesn't really matter. And what's nice is we don't have a laser to deal with like we did in the first phase. Now it's the Vespula refight, and we might actually get to see some of her attacks. Nope, never mind. They got a shutdown. All right, no, here's the giant novelty flowers, and we saw the vines, and we see the wasps. If you don't destroy any of the wasps by staying inside their
That was my
radius,
fault.
Slugger.
then the wasps are actually easier to deal with because only a certain number of them maximum will spawn.
Please, please, please. Thank you.
All right, dealt with Vespula.
All right.
Another bullet
Enough
phase,
of that.
and again we've got we've got a shutdown, which is always nice in this phase. But we've also got the dark blue bullets making a return, which again, watch out for those. You're going to want to try to weapon swap through them if you have to, because they will instantly
That's a
knock you
bad
down
angle.
if they hit you. That was a little close. Oh, oh wow, almost made it
Dang.
through.
Dang.
So now we've got the Justice refight, again his
Oh, I'm
last
going in for
phase.
Go get
We got
some.
it. We went for the hero dive for the shutdown there. right under Justice's nose, or butt, I guess.
Oh, that laser, though.
Chill for a sec.
And now we're seeing the 3 different lasers. Will we see the final one? Not really.
We'll see this one, though. Get ready
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Discord, get hype. Yeah, there's the laser. Everybody likes that one.
So actually note that laser, I should point out that time will not occur until they hit continue on the final menu to get the final cutscene. So we've got a ways to go before time.
Twice. That laser went for me twice.
But
That's
now we've
amazing.
got
It's amazing.
Medulla throwing everything she's got at us. And fun fact, that laser is red. It can hurt the boss. There is an achievement for getting that laser to kill the boss. It's called Stop Shooting Yourself.
Is there achievement for having a magnet in my butt for it, or?
Got it.
Oh
Having
my
what?
goodness, a magnet, just like
Magnet.
right for me, 3 times, 3 times in that phase.
Okay, I got the crown.
All right,
do
we're
not
not
like
done
that.
yet, though.
Means I'm the best
Remember that I said Licorice showed Medulla things? This is the Ether Sphere. This is what Medulla saw that made her go off the deep end. This is a pure test of skill. This is like nothing you've seen before in the game. There are no battery pickups, no power-ups. There's no weapon energy drops. Instead, if you take a knockdown, you will recharge to weapon energy 3 within like 3 seconds. But you basically have a strict 60-second timer on this. If you do take a knockdown in this, you can actually sort of regain some time by making a mad dash for any of the cube enemies, because the cube enemies explode on contact, and when you get back up, you're invincible. So might as well eat some damage. But here we go. Medulla has really bit the dust now, and time is coming
Can
Oh,
I
up
go
in a
down?
few seconds. We can
Oh,
clap.
good.
That's all right.
Look at that.
And time is now. And that was Assault Android Cactus, everybody. So I will immediately point out, well, I think we did already. This game has a demo. You should try it.
What was the damage of our time there?
Optimize a spaceship. The core controls everything, even in a weakened state. If she figures out
Everybody got
what
time
to do, she'll
on that run?
destroy the ship.
50-19? All right.
That's a PB.
All right. That is a PB.
Yep.
Right on.
Oh, it's the recording.
We didn't undo it.
We did.
I like that.
I did not expect that would follow you.
Did we get Peanut Mouth off already?
Yes.
Dang it, I missed
Because
it.
she's about to blow it up.
Yeah. All right, that's fine. Well, before we hand it off to the next run, I just want to say a few things. I'm not used to streaming for a big crowd. I started doing this like 3 years ago or whatever. Like get maybe 5 people at a time. So this kind of terrifies me a little bit. But I really started getting into it after my dad passed away from cancer, and it really helped me to not turn inward so much, to kind of get the bad energy out there. Not on stream, obviously, but it really helped me out. So if anybody ever tells you that video games are a waste of time or not productive or whatever, they're lying, they're incorrect, they're completely false. They can do a lot of good for you, individually and obviously as Games Done Quick and other events have illustrated very nicely, that you can do a lot of help for everybody else too. So thank you to the organizers, tech crew, donors, fellow runners, commentators, everybody. You guys make video games worth something. So thanks a bunch.